Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We break down fantasy, romantasy, dark romance, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy.
Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, character breakdowns, fan theories, and more. And here's your content warning. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Yep. And going forward from here, this is your spoiler warning for The Perfect Marriage by Jeneva Rose. We will not be covering in this episode anything about The Perfect Divorce, which is the next book in this series. So I just want to preface by saying this is only going to be The Perfect Marriage by Jeneva Rose. Really excited for our thriller, so consider this your spoiler warning.
Let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
All right, tonight's drink of the episode, I am calling Small Fires.
Ooh, that's
so
pretty.
if you can see, there's definitely some like blood drippage situation happening here. It's like a clear color. So let me talk about what's in it. So her girl Sarah is a Tito's and soda type girly. She likes her vodka sodas. And so this is like my take on that. And I'm also calling it Small Fires on purpose because one of the most popular highlights in the book is a quote from her towards the very beginning where she says, she's talking about how she just got her coffee for work. And she's like, I pick up the cup of coffee and bring it to my lips and it burns, but it's a good type of burn. Like the small fires we sometimes need in our lives to remind us that we're alive. And I'm like, okay,
if that's
girl.
Not toxic.
So small fires, and I liked it because the blood drip too, and also the drink itself is kind of a nod to her as a character. So it's got Tito's, it has fresh lime juice, it has cherry liqueur, and then also on the top it has some sparkling lime water, basically. You know how you can get the different flavored sparkling waters. And it's basically my take on a vodka soda. So it's got a little bit more class to it, and it's a little bit more scary looking. But to get the outside look, you can make a very, very easy, simple syrup at home and use some red food coloring and kind of dip the glass in this and then let it drip down the sides, and it'll give you that same effect on the outside, but it's not inside the drink. So yeah, there you go. Just small fires. Cheers.
There we go. Cheers.
Good. Very light, refreshing. True to a vodka soda. I did use Tito's too because I felt like if you're gonna read the book and do it, you're gonna have to do Tito's because that was her go-to. So there we go. That's our drink of the episode tonight.
Awesome.
Tonight, of course, we're exploring The Perfect Marriage by Jeneva Rose. So whether you're reading along with us or you're just here for the book talk, we are really glad you're here. I always love when we have our little, what we call a palate cleanser, but also just like our thrillers. Our thrillers are so fun. We have, for those joining us and haven't been part of a thriller episode yet, you know, we do a few throughout the year because a bulk of our time is spent on these much larger, denser, romantasy novels. And while those are great, I feel like the thriller, we usually cover the entire book. And in this case, we do the entire book in one episode. So we do cover those a little bit differently. So Michelle, why don't you tell us how we're going to flow through today's episode and kind of get us into what we've got going on?
So today's episode is even going to be a switch up if you're one of our true night owls who've been with us for a while. Just kind of playing around with the format a little bit because this book was so fun and it doesn't need a chapter by chapter because the chapters are so fast and you're getting a lot of information from different points of view. So the way this episode, it's to build suspense. A lot of thrillers take up chapters just to build suspense. You're not gaining a whole lot of new information in these chapters, but you're leading up to like the big climactic point. We're going to discuss our ratings and then we're going to go into our characters. And with thrillers, there usually are a ton of characters, especially with like Jeneva Rose and more of like the who did it type of thrillers, because, you know, you need to keep guessing who is our killer. And then we're going to go into a little bit of context, setting, and then a little plot. But I also have discussion questions for us to kind of have more of like a book club type feel so we can kind of get into more of like the themes. And we do this naturally anyways, but I have like, just because there are a lot of controversial things that happen in this book, so I want to make sure that we kind of talk about those thoroughly instead of going through the plot as much, especially with the way this is set up. So Yeah. So why don't you, Danny, get us started with our rating? So what did you rate this book out of 5
Yeah,
stars?
out of 5. I have a hard time rating thrillers 5s, honestly, because usually it takes a lot for me to give a thriller a 5. I give this a 4.7. And the reason
Okay.
I'm so specific about that rating is I felt that the location specifically bothered me and the distance between locations, especially because that is a critical element in the success of our killer is this distance between these houses. And the way that that kind of bothered me, and I'll get into that a lot more once we talk about the storyline and everything, but I that was my one like critical flaw with the book itself. But as a whole, I didn't figure out necessarily who did it. I had an idea. And some of the other things that were going on with it, I didn't figure out either. But what I did like about it was I liked how I felt something for each of these characters, in whether it was good or bad. Definitely provoked a feeling in me. So the 4.7 rating came from a variety of places. The other things too that I thought were good about the story is I like Jeneva Rose as an author. We also covered Home is Where the Bodies Are, and that was another one of hers that I enjoyed. I think with thrillers in general, just because they're so much shorter of a story and then the format of them, I tend to rate them lower than my romantasy books. And I don't know if it's like a personal thing where I feel like there's just, it's real world, so that makes it tougher. I'll have to look into this from a psychological perspective as to why this is, but I just feel like it's harder to get a 5 from me with a thriller. Your elements like really, really have to work perfectly for you to get the 5. And I think that there were a couple things that could have been done a little bit cleaner in this specific book. Well, what I did like about it is the book itself, his mistress is dead. His wife is his only hope. I mean, look at this book. I got the collector's edition with the blood edges, and it's pretty cool. So I liked it for that reason. I thought it was fun. It's going to be a movie, so I'm excited to go see it. Of course, we'll go see it together. Maybe we'll do a book club after dark outing event for that. But yeah, 4.7. What'd you think?
I think I'd give it a 4 out of 5, just because I do love her character development. I do love it when an author can make me sympathize with the most awful people. And because she's good at building complex characters, because there are points I'm like, Adam's a piece of shit. He's awful. I'm like, it's kind of sympathizing and feel sorry for him at some point. His mother's also terrible. And then, there are points in the story where I felt bad for her. And then our protagonist, I'm like, usually in these thrillers, our protagonists you're rooting for. But in the end, I didn't feel myself rooting for her as much. So I got a lot of conflicting feelings on how I felt about these characters. There's some loose ends with certain characters that I'm like, it felt like it was tied too quickly just to be convenient. Like Scott, Kelly's husband. He just kind of randomly, he's innocent, but he dips out. Okay, cool. Like that. There are some things that, and we're just going to throw in some character names just to kind of distract, which I know thriller authors tend to do that just to keep you guessing, but it's felt a little bit more.
They do that, though. I feel like thrillers are notorious for this. But look, hear me out. So is romantasy. The last 100 pages of like any beefy romantasy, it's like, well, bam, here's all the things right at the end.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it definitely does happen like that. I'm going to stick with my 4 out of 5. I mean, I did enjoy the book. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I didn't guess I like half guessed. I didn't fully guess the extent of where
I thought it was her, but I didn't know how it was her.
Right, and I thought it was him. I didn't know how it was him. So, because I texted you that. But I did enjoy the book. I did enjoy it. I did listen to the audiobook, which has 2 narrators because it's a dual point of view, which I did enjoy. Both voice actors were phenomenal in capturing really the emotions of these characters, which I feel like is really important with this story because you have Adam who's very quickly losing it. And the voice actor portrays that pretty quickly or pretty easily. Nice. And then we have Sarah.
I read it on Kindle, so also, I will definitely have to check that out.
I suggest it. I definitely suggest it. It's really good. And what's really interesting about this book is this is her second time around publishing this book. So she first published this book in 2020. And then that was when she was indie. And then now that it's picked up with Trad, she tightened it up, changed a lot of things. and republished it with this new publisher, redid the cover, redid a lot of stuff. So I thought it was interesting that this was her second time around with this book. So
yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into our characters. Obviously, we know that this is a dual point of view, as we mentioned. You have Sarah, who's this lawyer, career woman in DC area, who's kind of just really been involved in her work. And then you have Adam, her husband, who is I wouldn't say washed up, but kind of a washed up author. He had one bestseller and he's really trying to write, but can't really get a grip here to get anything out. He's had massive writer's block. It's just like not been happening for him. Our other characters are Anne, Sarah's secretary, Matthew, Sarah's best friend, another person who kind of just like fell off.
My favorite. Anyway. Yeah, but he was my favorite also. Like I liked.
Yeah, he was good comic relief. I will say that. He was good comic relief. And then you have Kelly, who's Adam's mistress. She's our victim. And we have Scott Summers, Kelly's husband, who we know as an abusive husband and who is the deputy sheriff as part of the sheriff's office that is investigating the murder as well. Sheriff Stevens, who is the sheriff over the small town and who is supposedly helping Sarah find the killer. Then you have Bob, who is Kelly's brother-in-law, who also works at the same law office as Sarah. Interesting. And then Rebecca, a fake reporter, supposed reporter who was supposed to keep track of Adam, but is actually a private investigator hired by none other than Sarah. And then Eleanor, who's Adam's ridiculous mother, who is definitely giving the housemaid vibes, smothering, controlling, really, really hates his wife, Sarah. So that kind of wraps up our characters. There's not a lot, but I did agree with you on the convenience factor of Kelly happening to be Bob's brother-in-law's, ex-wife, basically. Like that all kind of like, it's a little too easy for that to kind of piece together, but it does help tell the story. But yes.
Yes, it helps tell the story. And I have a lot of issues with Scott as a character. So they were in this completely other state. He was just completely in this other state. And then as we find out pretty quickly that Kelly, even though she's a victim, she's not a good person, I would say. She's framed for the murder of she was convicted for the murder of her late husband. And she didn't get off. Yeah. Well, no, she was convicted. She wasn't sentenced though, because Scott got rid of evidence, meaning she was guilty. She was 100% guilty, but Scott got rid of evidence. And you see that here, that it's really easy for dirty cops to play dirty and kind of manipulate situations in this book. And I feel like there are some aspects of this book that are a lot of social commentary for sure in the justice system. But then Scott,
I beg the question. Is she guilty that we know of? Yeah, he got rid of evidence, but just because you have the evidence doesn't even necessarily mean that was the right conviction, because that's the situation Adam finds himself in. So you have the parallel of like, you have this evidence that's solidly, but it's said again and again and again that there could be circumstantial evidence. And obviously Scott believes that she didn't do this and figures out a way to like run away with her. So maybe she did, maybe she didn't. We never really know if she actually did kill her ex-husband. There's just a lot of suggestions that she did. And Bob definitely believes that she did, which kind of brings us to what happens to her and drives motive. And so there's a lot of the person we failed to mention that's one of the supporting characters is also the prosecutor against Sarah in this instance. And he repeatedly just talks about how much he just needs certain things and then they're done. They're going to wrap it up and move on. And that's an interesting take on doesn't care about the third set of DNA. Doesn't necessarily care if her husband did it or not, just wants the case to be done and over with. And we have somebody, we're going to nail him for this. That's it. And, Sarah, I already have enough to put him away. So good luck to you to try to not get him on this. And it was very interesting to me to read that banter back and forth, wondering, does this happen in real life? Are we really seeking justice, or are we seeking checked boxes to get your conviction and move on? Are you getting your stats of those you've been able to convict, whether wrongly or not? Is true justice being served? And that really weighs heavily on us as humans and what we determine is moral or immoral, and how we handle things from a justice standpoint. So all of those things were like very interesting to me, but I kind of ran away with the train here.
No,
keep going.
I mean, the whole book is a social commentary on the justice system, and then we'll talk more as we go through the plot and with our discussion questions. But here's a little context and background story for our main characters. So Sarah and Adam actually met at Yale. She studied political science and he studied English. They met at a party where Sarah wasn't interested in him, but they ended up going home together. So Adam was kind of not Sarah's typical type. And from then on, like, she kind of took a chance on him, and then kind of fast forward 10 years. They're in present day. They've been married. The story starts out on like their 10-year anniversary. It's awful because it's like 10-year anniversary. Adam's fucking his mistress, and she's like getting him like a nice gift. So the whole like premise starts out like, Adam, you're not supposed to like Adam. Adam is a very terrible person. And then is essentially a partner in one of the best law firms in DC, which, if you're not familiar with the hustle and bustle in DC, and it talks a lot about how it's very difficult for women to do where she is in a very male-dominated career, in a very male-dominated area. So she represents very high-profile people, whether they be celebrities, politicians, that sort of thing. And Adam is a struggling author who manipulates Sarah into buying a lake house in a remote small town in Prince William County, Virginia. So that's kind of what sets the setting, essentially, or the motive behind the setting being one in this really secluded cabin off Lake Manassas in Prince William County, Virginia, which is a very beautiful area. Very, very beautiful. And it's set 1 hour outside of DC. And then there's Washington, D.C. So we have our two areas that kind of go back and forth throughout the novel with our settings.
Yep. I think there was definitely a lot of generous leeway when it comes to DC traffic. If you look it up on the map of like the distances between these two places, from a mileage standpoint, you would think you're doing okay. But if you know anything about downtown DC, trying to get out of there as a major city and trying to get into Virginia to get out to where this Lake Manassas is, in under an hour and back.
Right.
It just,
and she doesn't. It's not like she works on the outskirts of DC. No. She's not working in like Woodley Park or anything. She's working
in DC proper.
In the mall, like off the mall, which is huge tourist area. It's like she can literally see the monuments from her office. She's right downtown. So yeah, I would agree with that. It's unless I honestly like, so we've talked about like where we've been, and when I was in college, I did an internship in DC where I worked downtown, and instead of doing the metro system, walking was faster. The like 2.5 miles to get to the crappy apartment in Woodley Park to go to the mall versus taking the metro or even like an Uber every day. I'd rather walk. It was unrealistic. And how
and normally I wouldn't have like taken points off for that, because normally it's not so critical to the storyline. But if you're writing a book, especially a thriller where you're in a real location, especially a popular location, taking liberties like that is a massive risk. And I don't know if Jeneva Rose lived in that area at any part of her life. Maybe she did or didn't. I think she's from Wisconsin. I have to go back and look at that. But I'm fairly certain she's from like the Midwest. I don't know if she took some liberties with that, but it definitely felt like it didn't consider construction, accidents, like all the things
it was
that
at night.
Are notorious.
It was like a weekend night too.
And also, and then also like those roads are really dark. I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't really work for me.
Right.
That part was tough for me, and maybe I'm generous now on my 4.7. You made me start to think about that more. But let's move on. So let's get to our plot. So we really are going to kind of summarize this fairly quickly, because if you've read the book, you already know the plot. I just think it's important that we kind of get through it fairly quickly and summarize it and get to like the meat and potatoes of this book and the real conflicts that I think are important to discuss. we first figure out that we're going to have dual point of view and that Adam basically doesn't have a lot of time with his wife. And Sarah also doesn't prioritize him. So that's like our first like beginning understanding of their relationship, is that she's pretty much a workaholic and he has been kind of like to the side, but he can't be mad at her because she bought him this summer house that they're supposed to vacation at. However, they have both never been to this house together other than whenever it was bought. And that's it. So he goes there pretty regularly to work, and, you know, she stays in the city this whole time, which for me as a married woman is very odd right out of the gate. That is super strange to me. If my husband is leaving over an hour away to go to our other house to work all the time and staying there for lengths at a time, like, I'm not saying that that's like, if you do that or you like spend distances away because that's how you've always been in your relationship, that's one thing. But that is not the case with these two. That is something that's happened over time with their relationship because they haven't prioritized each other, which is a different thing. There are plenty of couples who have separate times and they make them each other a priority due to the fact that there's distance. Creating space on purpose to the point where you're buying a house somewhere else and intentionally creating further distance, creating space both metaphorically and physically, is really telling right at the beginning of this book that something's not right. Like, they've got some issues here.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, the intent of Adam pitching this cabin was, we can spend more time together, we can vacation. At least from his perspective, that was his pitch. You know, we have dual POV, and these these narrators are not reliable in a sense. So what he's saying is like, I had the best intention. I wanted this to be our vacation home where we spend time together, and we have our big home in DC where we have 5 bedrooms. So maybe we're going to have kids one day. Like, he's really hell-bent on having kids. Like that's like his...
Going to fix everything.
He was very fixated on this. And if you know, if you've had a kid, if you know, you have known people to have kids, kids don't fix relationships. Kids break them. And if you are not stable in your relationship, then it is dead. So like you can't fix a kid with a relationship.
It's an added stressor, is having a child. Whether you can love, and you know, we do, we're mothers ourselves, like, love our kids. There's absolutely nothing I would ever change. However, to deny the fact that our children are that it's easy to be a parent is complete falsehood. It is not. It's a challenge. It's another job. It's very difficult, and it should never be used as an excuse to try to fix a relationship that's already problematic. That child deserves more from you than that.
That's because we find that Adam is very self-serving in his aspect of his job, who he takes to bed,
in vain.
And we see that I argue that's because his mother is very narcissistic, and he's the product of a narcissistic mother ultimately. And instead of, you know, confronting generational trauma, he's, you know, diving right into it because he's such a mama's boy. And Eleanor just wants the very best for his son. He can do no wrong, and he didn't murder anyone, which, I mean, he didn't, but, you know, and the way Eleanor just treats Sarah is just awful. It's no excuse. And how, you know, no wonder why
no one's ever going to be good enough.
Right.
You know,
and no wonder why their marriage was like shit. I mean, it's not like they had, like, her family's dead, which is interesting. And then he doesn't get support from his family. So they're just doomed from the start. But
I kind of feel like both of them are a product of circumstance, honestly. Sarah as well. Not to say that, I mean, she's
Sarah
clearly
created
had
some of her circumstances.
She has sociopathic tendencies for sure. She's got some serious issues. Not everyone in the situation she was in handles your situation like that. No, you do not. So she's right. So let's start at the beginning.
Right.
We just talked about how we're bouncing all over the place again. Here we go. Sorry, y'all. We're getting with it. Adam and Kelly, his mistress, are at the cabin. They have had the night together. Kelly and Adam met at the coffee shop around the corner, and this is how they got together. It's over in the cabin that's outside of the DC area. Adam and Kelly pass out. They've been drinking scotch. I was very, very hesitant, or maybe I say very, very, like, I almost picked scotch for this drink of the episode. And then I was just like, No, I changed my mind. But it was on the cusp. I almost picked scotch. And then I almost picked a coffee drink, but we've already had a lot of those. So I was like, we haven't done a classic vodka soda, so we're going to do that. But anyway, scotch is a big component of this book as well. And he has a lot of it. She has a lot of it. The scotch is drugged. And Adam and Kelly both pass out. He wakes up, and this is weird when he wakes up to me, but he wakes up, he leaves her this little note. It's a very ominous note, does not help his case whatsoever. And he leaves to go home, not knowing that Kelly's dead next to him. He returns home, ends up hooking up with his wife after the fact. They decide they're going to have a baby.
So they can have a baby.
All of this is like crazy, bizarre situation. And then when you think back about this, Sarah just murdered Kelly in cold blood and meets him at home and still sleeps with him to make a baby, knowing what she's about to do, knowing that she's about to set him up.
She leaves a lot to chance, because what if his little seedling took, And
I mean, maybe, but I don't think that would have happened, because my thoughts are that Sarah was probably on the pill or something. It doesn't exclusively say that, but my thought would be that she planned for that inevitability and it wasn't going to happen one way or another. Because at this point, she's already with... No, but she's already with Bob at this point. So, she's not going to let that happen.
No, of course not.
Anyway, of course, he's arrested for murder. And Sarah's like, I have to defend you because I need to prove your innocence. And so right off the bat, because of the cover of the book, because of all the ways that this has gone down, you're already on Sarah's side at this point because of the way the pacing is set up. And Jeneva Rose wants you to be on Sarah's side. It makes the most sense for you to be on Sarah's side because obviously he has a mistress. Now the mistress is dead. She's the best defense attorney in DC. Who else is going to clean this mess up but his supportive wife, who's going to have to try to figure this out for him, going to clean up this idiot's mess. And Adam is really painted as an idiot the entire time, in my personal opinion. Spoiled idiot, basically. Acts like a
He doesn't listen. He doesn't know how to listen.
No.
Just sit there. His only job is to sit in the cabin.
Sit in the house.
Mommy brings so much stuff for him. Can't do it. Ugh. Can't even do it. I'm just like, you're in a picturesque cabin on a lake. You're not gonna fucking sit there. Write your damn book. That's all you gotta do. Write your book. And no, he doesn't. And even his agent's like, you could write a book. It'll be great. We're gonna make millions off of this.
We're gonna
which
be
he
huge.
does. Which
it's gonna be
huge.
It's
gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Can't even sit there and do that. He can't do it.
Has to prove his innocence. So Sheriff Stevens and Sarah first meet, tells her the facts of the case. Kelly Summers, who's 27, is found dead in their bed. She's stabbed 37 times in the stomach. It's a crime of passion. She has DNA inside of her from 3 separate men. No defensive wounds. Her eyes were open. And there's tears all over her from rough sex that she's had with whoever these 3 partners are. There's skin under her fingernails. Toxicology reports that she's roofied, and it ends up being from the scotch. But Sarah asked specifically if there was any drugs in Adam's blood, and Sheriff Stevens says no. And this is where this like bow ties really, really perfectly for Sheriff Stevens, because he knows he's the third set of DNA, and he has to figure out how he's going to be ruled out as a suspect here, because ultimately he's not going to put his own DNA in there. He's not going to pull in the system. But someone might be trying extra hard to figure who that is, especially if there is drugs found in Adam's blood, because that immediately takes him off, not fully, but does kind of take him off the list of major suspects and makes his story more believable that he didn't do it. Yes. That someone broke in or whatever, even though there wasn't any foul play like coming into the house and things like that. So obviously Adam's demanding that he's innocent, that Scott killed her. He believes Scott, her husband, who he knows has been abusive in the past, threatened to kill her because of the text messages that he had sent that night. Scott Summers, though, has this alibi, and he was supposedly with his partner the night of the murder. And Sarah has an alibi, too. She was out with Anne, her secretary, that night drinking. So The plot starts to thicken here.
So Adam becomes officially charged with murder, is granted bail, and put on house arrest. So this is where he's supposed to sit pretty in the house, and he refuses to do so for reasons beyond me. But
$2 million bail.
Which there's
$2 million.
No problem. I'll do it. I would have the firm do it, but I can't. So I'll just do it. It's fine. So they're very wealthy people. Very wealthy people.
Yes.
Sarah takes on the case and clears all other cases from her schedule, which causes a lot of conflict in her work life just because she's a partner in this law firm and she's technically not supposed to do that. And essentially she is losing out on money from doing this, but she has a plan. Like at first when she was doing this, I'm like, she doesn't love her husband that much. Like I started feeling like, why is she doing this? Because there's no way she loves her husband this much based on like how she's acting. So Sarah has this junior partner, Bob, and Bob's pretty much an asshole. He's painted as a dick the whole time. He kind of uses Anne, and Anne's painted as a puppy, essentially, who follows Sarah around more so than what is required from her job. So her job essentially is to help Sarah out with any of the cases, find evidence, kind of like go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, set up her for like depositions and whatnot. But Anne goes overboard, kind of wanting to be her best friend. And Bob takes advantage of this. And, you know, there's this whole really just weird dynamic with them.
Office drama.
Mm-hmm. And Sheriff Stevens takes a particular interest in the case. And Sarah's like, that's weird. He like is almost trying to give, like, he kind of flirts a little bit, gives her hugs, you know, and allows her to do things that she's not technically legally supposed to do. Like, lawyers don't visit the crime scene and see if they missed anything, you know? So Stevens kind of gives the ick. And then when he realizes there's no other new evidence, he becomes a dick in the end, too. He's like, stop calling me. Like, there's nothing else to do. Just leave it alone. And I believe this is because, you know, his name's cleared, ultimately. And Eleanor tries to meddle with the case. Eleanor is his mother. Essentially, she's trying to find a new lawyer the entire time. And the way I'm, like, upset for Sarah while Eleanor's speaking with her, saying that, you know, if she was a good wife and just had babies, then Adam wouldn't have cheated on her. And they wouldn't be in this mess. I'm like, what? How do you not have your son have any accountability whatsoever?
None.
Like, he didn't commit murder, but he's not fault. Innocent.
Yeah. Well, and she like glazes over the fact that she's with Kelly. He's with Kelly too.
No. It's your fault.
Like, it must have been something you did, Sarah, that he would go do that. You did something,
right?
Like, and what?
So Adam comes from a very wealthy family. We know that, and his dad had passed previously, so now his mom is alone with a lot of money in her hands and nothing to do but coddle her baby boy. So we have that dynamic there. And no lawyer is going to take Adam's case because the evidence is so stacked against him. And it's not because he's guilty, but the evidence shows that he's not innocent. So, you know, no one's going to take on a losing case.
Nobody wants to like
ultimately
take the burden. Mm-hmm. And also it looks bad for her to like give the case, her being the best top defense attorney. Her giving the case to husband. Someone else is, from a PR perspective, bad for him, publicity-wise. Like, you don't want to take your own husband's case. You must think he's guilty then. You know, all of it just points to, like, she's going to have to represent him. There's a weird twist here where we find out that Anne had visited the house before for vacation and went back there periodically, which is also weird. But anyway, goes back there and she takes some pictures of her husband and Kelly, of Sarah's husband and Kelly, Adam, and uses this to blackmail him and is like, end it or I will, leaves this photo. Everything about Anne is odd. She's been odd like from the start, and then that was odd too. The whole thing is just like very strange.
Right. Well, and then the way it was painted was she, as like a gift, Sarah gave her like a week vacation at, you know, her dreamy cabin. And then Anne likes photography. So she went back there to, take photos and whatnot. So, yeah, Anne as a character was weird. She was just off to me, very just put there for convenience.
I feel like she was meant for you to look at.
Yeah.
You know, she was meant to be somebody you like were like weird about, because one of the other top highlights was like, I would trust her with anything. And it's Sarah talking about Anne, and everybody highlighted that. And so you're like waiting for it to be Anne. And it's also, she's kind of an oddball. So it fits that you would think you would start to go in that direction. And it's all part of Jeneva Rose's plan to get you to go there and think about that.
Right. I even thought that.
She's not going to do it. Yeah.
I thought that, you know, she's like, oh, she saw him, you know, they got into a heated argument or whatever. Ended up not being Anne. Anne was, you know, she was in DC with Sarah. She was drinking a lot. So, you know, she has an alibi. Another character that we get introduced to that we kind of have questions about is Rebecca. So Rebecca is a reporter with quotations around it, that just appears at the cabin, like looking for questions. And Adam like hires her to do some research on who the third set of DNA is and like dig into a lot of stuff. And Adam is completely disregarding the evidence that Sarah gave him to look through. So like he has like something to do. He has a lot of things that he could be doing. He's like, no, I'm going to do my own thing. So here's what Rebecca finds. She finds that Kelly's name is actually Jenna Wham, and she was charged with murdering her previous husband, which is Greg Miller. Adam knew this, and there's a chapter that even goes back to when Kelly/Jenna goes into detail about what happens there. And obviously Adam honestly is gullible. He believes whatever anyone tells him, and he doesn't have an afterthought of it. So yeah, he'll just believe whoever.
And he just like runs with these wild stories in his head too.
Right. Well, I mean, he believed Scott was like, I don't beat Kelly. And then Sarah has to be like, someone who's abusive isn't going to say they're abusive. And you saw
also
the
he
bruises.
Just beat you up. Like he literally just beat you. What are you talking about?
He's aggressive. Like so Adam's an idiot. Case got dropped because of mishandling of evidence, which Scott Summers was the deputy on that case. They ended up getting married, and she changed her name. They moved to this little quaint town and where she's a waitress. Kelly had a stalker too, Jesse Hook. He was supposed to be like someone that you kind of look at, like, who's this person?
Yeah, briefly.
He would like frequent the cafe. He ended up just being creepy. And then
you thought he was the third set of DNA. Yeah. The whole time you're like, he must be the third set of DNA, you know?
Right. Because it sets up from the beginning that due to the roughness of Kelly's body, that she could have been assaulted as well in like the physical sense, even though there wasn't a break-in. And then Greg Miller has a brother, which we find out is Nicholas Robert Miller, aka Bob Miller. And Anne's handwriting matches the handwriting of the black male. So this is where we get all of that information that Adam just kind of goes with and spirals again. So once he finds out that Anne's handwriting matches the photo and that Bob Miller is Jenna Kelly's late brother's or late husband's brother, so many like character like details.
I know.
Then he like breaks house arrest. So when you're in house arrest, you can't leave the perimeter or you get arrested and sent back to jail. So he storms off and drives an hour into the office in DC. And the way I'm like, how did he get? And it's the middle of the day. There's no traffic. And so, so he storms in there, DC. No one got to him yet. And then causes this big scene about, you know, Robert and Anne being
he's like, I know
killers.
You're Bob. I figured it out. Anne is
you
the killer.
Killed Anne.
Figured it out.
Exactly.
You guys are all part of it.
Makes a scene, goes to jail. So house arrest gone. He's sitting in jail. Sarah's
and
like,
you're
a fucking
back to
idiot.
the point that they just paid $2 million to give him house arrest. And this man just gets in the car and leaves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what is happening?
And then basically, due to the case not looking good for Adam, Eleanor essentially blamed Sarah and her past with her parents. And this is where things get really heated between Sarah and Eleanor ends up slapping Sarah. And Sarah like takes it, like, because she just wants Eleanor to be gone because she's just a headache at this
she's done
point.
with her.
She's causing too many issues already. Adam's already causing issues. And you think the issues, you know, as they're happening, you're like, wow, this is bad for Sarah. But really it helps Sarah out in the long run because Adam's just an idiot. And it's easy for him to be pinned down.
And then you have the third set of DNA, which they don't find out. that piece is like wild because it ends up being the sheriff, and we realize why all of a sudden Adam's, blood doesn't get tested for the drugs. We start to realize, and Sarah figures this all out before she decides that, well, she had already framed him, but it just is the nail in the coffin of like how her figuring out where you think like you being led that like the reason she has this third set of piece of DNA is that she's found the killer and she's going to still help Adam get off. And you realize, nope, she's holding that piece because now she knows who the third person was and that they deliberately like fucked with the case, but he's definitely still going to be framed because that was part of the plan the entire time. So Adam's found guilty of the murder of Kelly. He's sentenced to death. Sarah knew the whole time what he was doing. I also think it was really weird. There's this very strange moment with the reporter / private investigator where Adam and Rebecca kiss.
Yeah, that was weird.
And I was like, Adam, what are we doing? You're saying you love your
that
wife.
happens
like,
because
how are you already in this situation? It's
because
like
he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Like, you don't love her? What are you talking about? Like, he just
no. Well, that happens because Adam. So when Adam goes to jail, he escapes jail.
Yeah,
which I'm like, you're just, even if you're innocent, and Sarah even says this, even if you're innocent, you're going to prison either way. At this point in time,
right?
It doesn't even matter.
Yes.
So he escapes and like he wanders into a gas station,
Rebecca's house.
And finds Rebecca's house and like shows up. Yeah, it was a really weird situation, and she obviously calls the cops, and he gets taken back into custody. So, yeah, that was weird.
Also, like again, taking into consideration DC area. Very, very heavily populated with law enforcement and multiple entities. So like the idea that this like guy with an ankle bracelet can just like wander free for any real length of time is wild to me, but I digress. Again, a lot of liberties are given with this specific story. And yeah, there were definitely weird nuances here that I was like, probably not, but we're going to let it slide. Sure. So Adam's found guilty of the murder. We fast forward 11 years. And we're at his lethal injection execution, which, of course, Eleanor, his mother, is there. And Sarah is there. She's showing up. This is her POV that we're coming from. She never divorces Adam. And she decides that she's going to get married the day after his execution. We find out that she's getting married. We don't know to who. She wears white. It's all like very symbolic to her. And in their final meeting, Sarah makes sure that Adam's last thoughts are of her. And that she knows for a fact that he didn't kill her. And Adam, the whole time, you kind of switch point of views for a few minutes. And Adam does eventually, right before he died, like pieces it together, realizes that his wife set him up the whole time and really realizes who she was right before he's about to die. Sarah orchestrated the whole murder with Bob Miller, and they had drugged Kelly, and he went drinking with Anne, but she wasn't keeping track. Anne was drinking too much, not keeping track of time. Her alibi, Anne, is with Sarah, and she's not keeping track of time. So she went home whenever she went home. She doesn't really remember. So at this time, Sarah slips away and stabs Kelly. So there's this weird gap of time. He gets home at like 2 a.m. She's out with Anne till maybe midnight, supposedly. Yeah, based on Anne's time, but Anne doesn't really remember because she was drinking too much. And so in this window, she drives over an hour there and over an hour back and also commits the murder within this time frame. And I struggle with that, especially because this is supposed to be like the real main event of how it happened. It's the middle of the night, granted, so maybe the traffic's not bad. I get that. But I still like...
But she had to have driven there before, broken in, drugged them. It's not that she stabbed... Like, remember, they're drugged. Someone drugged... Like, she drugged them before, too. So it takes... It's not that she just went over there, stab, went back. Like, there was more of the process to it. And, yeah, there was definitely... I don't know. I had a hard time believing it. It made sense in the story. It doesn't make sense in like an actual tangible
Well, maybe they don't really explain how she drugged the liquor. So I'm assuming she drugged it at some other time, knowing that he would drink it.
When she's
betting on the fact that they would drink
there.
it. Another thing that's a piece that's a gamble, right? How do you know with certainty that they drank the scotch that you drugged if you weren't like watching them the whole time and you're out drinking with your coworker? How do you like it? Just there's inconsistencies with that for me.
Unless Bob was the one that went there and drugged them.
Well, we don't know. Like this is part of, like a plot hole that's not really like discussed in more detail. And I wished it would have been, because it would have helped me with my rating and would have helped me overall with the storyline, because the location piece and like this part of like, oh yeah, I did it. I went and stabbed him and like Anne was too drunk to remember. It just felt too easy and not in depth enough to like really describe what happened here. And I felt like we deserve that as readers. By the time you get to this point in a thriller, it should be very, very clear how this happened. And I felt like that kind of neat bow that I'd like to see in thrillers, it didn't fully happen. And there's a lot that's kind of let slide here. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree, especially since, Scott just skips town. And she's like, well, that was convenient. It's like, yeah, it was convenient. Why would he skip town? If, like, there was literally nothing on the line for Scott. Yeah, it was. He wasn't convicted of anything. It's not like he was, like, in holding in jail. Like, yeah, he was on probation, but it's not because he murdered Kelly. It was because he can't keep his fists to himself. Him skipping town didn't make any sense to me. And then we get a picture of like how Sarah's sociopathic tendencies kind of stem from her childhood, where she, her dad was great. When her dad died, her mom kind of went into drugs and couldn't really keep them alive. And, Sarah was the one that kept them alive. She had to work. She had to do all these things. And Sarah ended up being the one that killed her mom. She's like, well, she injected herself with some drugs already. What's tumor needles?
Yeah, we think she OD'd, but no, she actually
she did
put
OD
3 needles into her.
But
but Sarah OD'd her.
Sarah, not accidentally.
Right.
So it was, so that gives you some back context for her that she's been able, like, killing Kelly was nothing. She killed her own mother, And Rebecca was ultimately hired by Sarah and Bob to kind of keep tabs on Adam because he's such a flight risk. Adam ultimately did write his story, which I thought this was really, I don't want to say funny, but this was really ironic in a sense that he wrote a story, he made millions because it became a Netflix series. But because he was on death row, he couldn't collect any of his royalties. And he ended up donating the funds to an organization to help free him, and they couldn't free him.
They looked at his case and they were like, no, it's too difficult. No, we're not going to.
Exactly.
We don't think that you're innocent. We can't help you. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, you deserve this, but you also, also you don't. In a sense, but you do. I don't know. It was really conflicting. It was ironic. One thing I did find that was fucked up is, Sarah ends up marrying Bob, and they have an 8-year-old girl named Summer. And I'm like, Summer. Isn't Kelly's last name Summers? I thought that was like, that's kind of weird that would be her name. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a book.
It was, it definitely took you for a ride. There was definitely a ride.
I read it super fast, which was great.
It was
also read it really fast.
Like a 5-hour read.
Yeah, quick read.
Let's get into our discussion questions now. We already talked about plot holes and loose ends that we thought we wish that were tied up a lot more neatly. Throughout the book, though, when you were reading, who did you suspect killed Kelly, and how did that change?
I felt like either she wasn't mad enough, in my opinion, even with all the stuff that she was angry at, I still felt like when it was in Sarah's point of view, she wasn't truly angry enough. And then I also felt like Adam was so dumb. Like, he pissed me off so much. His point of view chapters, I was like, you are the most like narcissistic character I've read in a while. Just like so self-serving, so about himself. As soon as his agent calls and is like, we can make this a book deal, he's like, yeah, like he's all excited. Like, bro, you're under house arrest for murder. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. What? It's just, he's so like, he didn't care that much about Kelly. He talks about himself. Like, he's not mourning. He's like, I loved her so much. And like, he spends like 3 tears on Kelly. the girl that he was supposedly so in love with,
who was
that he's
asleep next to him.
Literally, like how? So then I kind of thought murdered. Maybe it could be him. Like maybe he was so. For a while, I honestly thought that he was so detached from reality, being trashed, that he like didn't remember. He blacked out and freaking he actually did it. I was waiting for that twist to be like he finally like something in him snapped, or who knows what. There was some kind of underlying plot that we just didn't read yet. I thought it could have been him. I really did.
Okay.
From the jump. I was like, maybe it's him. He was just such an unlikable character for me.
He was, and I couldn't get over his hyper fixation with children. And one thing that we didn't talk about is the reason why he's on death row for the murder of Kelly is not because he murdered Kelly, but because Kelly was pregnant. So because of that, that's automatic death sentence if you're found guilty of murder of either an infant or an unborn child. So yeah, he was just so, and then that like finding that out like destroys him in a sense. And I feel like it's not because of the life of the child, but like his urge to like duplicate himself. I feel like that's what more his driving point was for wanting a child. And
he's all very like romantic about the idea of it, you know, how he's going to be.
Yes.
Which kind of is how he romanticizes everything in his own mind. It's not based in reality or like real life experience. It's just like, you know, he leaves her, the note that he leaves her, all of it. It's just so not based in reality and romanticized in his mind versus fact. He's just like not living in the real world. He's just not.
No.
What about you?
And so when I first, I was like, okay, the obvious way that Jeneva wants us to go is like, it was Scott, right? Crime of passion, paints that pretty neatly.
Yes.
As soon as Bob was mentioned, I was like, it's the brother. It has to be the brother. There's no other reason for the brother to be working there. Like, you know, it had to be him. As soon as that tidbit of information came out, I was like, it's him. But then I got distracted a little bit by Anne. Kelly, her murder, I didn't think Sarah was it at all. So that kind of threw me to them like, oh my God, it was Sarah. And like thinking back, I'm like, yeah, you know, it was the way, because Anne was like, oh, I don't remember when we got home. And Sarah's like, yeah, we got home at like 12:30. 12:30-ish is like when we left. So like Sarah's the one manipulating like the timepieces and everything. So it makes sense reading back to it again. So yeah, But
again, there's still a lot to chance there. The obsessive nature Anne has of Sarah works in this case, but like maybe Anne got a text from someone else after she left with Sarah. Like how does she know definitively? I feel like there's so much that's put to chance for Sarah to be successful for this is like very wildly risky for someone who's a defense attorney. Like I feel like there's too many loose ends that could have been there. If she's supposedly this great attorney, to me I would have thought she would have buttoned it up a lot tighter than what happened here.
I agree. And okay, so throughout this novel, we have a lot of different characters. And I would honestly think most of them are unlikable. I don't think any of the characters I actually liked and thought was a good person. Everyone had their faults. So which one did you find Matthew. The most? Yes. Which one did you find the most
likable was Matthew.
Why? For sure. He was the most likable, but he had his faults.
He had issues too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of his comments are like, damn, okay. He's just brutal.
Right. He didn't he called kids a waste of time. And he ultimately ends up having kids. He went to Yale for law also, but he was a lobbyist because he can make more money. He ends up getting DNA a dirty type of way just to help Sarah out. So he was my favorite too. But yeah, definitely had his faults. So, but who was the most unlikable?
Just from an exposure standpoint for me, it was Adam, hands down.
Okay.
Just because I heard his point of view so much.
Right, but did you find
he irritated me? No, I
so
thought
none of his actions
most of his actions were stupid, and I thought he was just very annoying. I was getting pissed at him left and right. I was like, "Sir, what?" And we talked about this quite a bit already. But he was just so spoiled.
Fair.
He irritated me so much because he was so spoiled. And you have to remember too that Sarah was never born into wealth. She got everything she did by working incredibly hard. So imagine marrying someone like Adam and just like. I wonder at what point she just was like, I'm completely done with this whole situation.
Right.
Like, I just wonder. And it makes me wonder, like, going back in time, that maybe she deliberately placed, like maybe Bob knew where this girl worked and she was like, oh, my husband's an idiot. And, I want to see if he'll take the bait with her. Let's see what happens. Like, you don't know, like, how the depth of the deception went.
Right.
Like, you don't know if, like, she caught, but, like, obviously her and Bob had already been together because we know that she cheats with Bob while the case is ongoing. Like, while she's solving the case, somebody comes into her house and she sleeps with them, and it's like a sentence or two long. It's very short. But at that point, you start to turn on Sarah and you start to realize, oh, she's been cheating too. It's interesting. So it makes me wonder, like, how far back did they plan this? And it gives more credibility to the fact that she is a defense attorney. So maybe she planned this with Bob a long time back. And there was a whole setup. Maybe that's why they bought the house there. Maybe that's why she never visited there on purpose. So he would feel comfortable bringing some strange woman into the house.
And her
like
DNA
knowing that
really
Sarah's never going to just show up. Yeah. All of those factors. Like, maybe it goes back even more than that of, like, how she chose to do this because she's a murderer before. She's already murdered someone before. Right. So this isn't her first time, and her lover are both defense attorneys. So how are they going to go about this without highlighting themselves at all? Like, how do they make this work? It makes me think that her and Bob were involved for some time before
for sure.
This went down.
Yeah. I would agree with that. So while I did find Adam unlikable, Eleanor was honestly the most unlikable for me.
Triggering.
Every time she was just mentioned, I was just like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Just because that mom archetype just really irritates me. And I think a lot of it's because, being moms ourselves, I don't understand that archetype. It's not something I can get behind. So anytime I see it, it just irritates me. So why do you think Adam really trusted Sarah to be his attorney after he had betrayed her by cheating? Like, think back, like, initially, like, why would Adam actually trust her? Or do you think he even trusted her anyways? Or was it like a convenient type thing for him? And if you were in his shoes, would you have let her take the case? He's
so naive and so dumb. Like, he just thinks, oh, I did this wrong thing, but she's going to understand. She's going to get it. She's going to understand why I did this thing. And, like, she loves me. And you have to remember, the night before, they had just slept together to make a baby. So he believes that, like, they've just made this baby and, like, yeah, she's really hurt. But, like, once I tell her that I really love her, she's going to understand. He just is like, how could this be happening? And then you have to put yourself in his shoes a little bit too and think, like, if you are completely innocent and this is your spouse, regardless of what you've done, you're going to hope that they're going to try to get you out of this, especially if they're the best defense attorney in this area. So yeah, I don't think it's outlandish that he goes with her. And I also think for his own defense, he should go with her. So I think all of it makes sense and all of it works for Sarah, of course. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of my thought.
Yeah.
He's naive and he also thinks he's deserving of forgiveness and that, like, cheating doesn't necessarily equal murder. Therefore, come on, I'm not a violent criminal. I may have fucked up, but, like, I'm not a violent criminal. So it wasn't
Which is valid. I mean, he did fuck up.
Yeah.
He wasn't violent.
Yes. No.
And the way that, like, because I remember that chapter where he talks about, he's like, I know we only had sex one time, but I know she's the mother of my unborn child. Like, he's like, so, like, I believe it happened. Like you said, he's romanticized everything, that things happen by chance. And he's just,
that's the thing that irritated me. He had such a short fuse. He literally, like, the girl you just wrote a note to, who you just told her that, like, you were going to leave your wife for.
Yeah.
You just told her this, like, the night before and the same day, the same evening, in the same span of 4 hours. Right. You just told this girl this. Then you go home and sleep with your wife and decide to make a child. Like, what, Adam, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? I'm just saying, like, it just doesn't, the guy is, like, delusional. He's not okay. Everything is not okay.
No, for sure. It makes sense why he would trust her, because he's gullible. He'll trust anything. Yeah. Anything anyone says at face value, he's going to trust. He trusted Rebecca. It's like, you don't know Rebecca. Like, he literally gave Rebecca
and that was another thing that I was like,
money.
This chick just showed up in your doorstep and you just paid her $5,000. Like, just like, here you go. Like, what? Yeah. What if you don't even know for sure who she is? You didn't.
And he's like, well,
you didn't track her name with the work she does. Like, you didn't pull up any articles proving who she was. You just like, oh yes, everybody wants to know about me, so therefore it's about me. Therefore, yes, you must be a reporter doing this about me. Because again, he's a narcissist. So everything is about, how do I make myself feel better? Of course, they're not gonna. Of course, nothing bad can happen to me because I didn't do this. So therefore, like, I'm going to be proven innocent. Yeah, I made a few mistakes, you know, like. You imploded her world. What do you mean you made a few mistakes? Like, what? What is happening? You know, it just, I can't with him. He's just a ridiculous person.
We've talked extensively about, like, Adam being the absolute worst. And yes. Was he deserving, though, of the death penalty? Did he deserve to die?
No.
Okay.
No. Did he deserve to be divorced? Hell yes. Yes, he did. Yeah. Absolutely deserved to be divorced. Yes.
But the death penalty, Sarah talks about why she doesn't do that. She has to murder. She has to kill him. Essentially, she sets up why she has to kill him, because she says he doesn't deserve half of her stuff. She's worked so hard. She doesn't want in this relationship.
Well, yeah. And if they divorce in the area that they live, she would have had to give him everything and basically pay him alimony for the rest of his life. And she's like, I'm not willing to do that. I've already decided before I became wealthy that if I ever became wealthy, no man. I was never going to give any man my life that way, the way my mother did. And she's like, he has to die. There's no other way. Which tells me, like, she never loved him in a way a person is supposed to love someone ever. And is she even capable of it? You know, she's basically a complete sociopath. And maybe she only married him because he was of a wealthy family and he was going to be this famous writer, which never panned out. Yeah. You know, and he had a big hit. He just never followed up on it.
Just not for the reasons that he wanted initially. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. He doesn't deserve to die, because he doesn't deserve to get framed for this action. Kelly didn't deserve to die, I don't think, either, especially in such a gruesome way. I mean, she was drugged, but she woke up while she was being stabbed. Like, you know, and the fact that
we
she was
don't
stabbed,
know that
like,
she was a murderer. Either.
No.
We don't know that.
No,
for
there's lots of questions on that, whether she did it, whether she didn't. And she has, like, this sad story, and, like, you know, you're supposed to hate Scott, but really, was he abusive? Was she not? You know, there's a lot of gray areas with a lot of these characters. And I feel like in terms of gray, you can't have something
finale. And also, Kelly's sleeping with the sheriff, too.
That part threw me. I was just like, the sheriff? Really? You're gonna sleep? Yeah. We're sleeping with everyone at this point? What did the sheriff know? What was also the sheriff hiding? Not just sleeping with her, but, like, you know, about her past. So that part was weird. I didn't know if placing the third piece of evidence. Right. And I know that gave Adam something to hold on to, but the fact that it's like, oh, it's the sheriff. It's like, okay, why? Like,
well, it also created reasonable doubt, right? Where that was like the angle that we thought there's reasonable doubt here. This is an angle that, you know, Sarah can really press at because we don't know who this is, and she's going to get this evidence, and now she knows who the third person is right before court. So we thought, and we're in Adam's mind towards the end, where we think that her finding this piece of evidence, even if it's not admissible, is a way that she can tell a story that creates reasonable doubt.
But she never tells it. She finds it out.
No.
And she doesn't tell it. She keeps it to herself. And the only reason why she found it is because she didn't know who it was. Like, she did it for herself.
She had a hunch. Yeah, but she had a hunch.
But she never knew. And she said it was pissing her off that she couldn't figure it out. So that's why she had to have Matthew figure it out. So again, she's also a narcissist. So, you know, when two narcissists, one sociopathic, the other one heavily romantic, like, get together, it's going to implode. But
yeah, and good thing they didn't have a child. My God. Oof.
Awful. Jeez. So do you think Jeneva is making a statement about the justice system and death penalty in this novel? We talked about that absolutely. A little bit.
Yeah, I absolutely think she is. I also think that this being a genre that she writes in all the time. She's making a statement about, hey, just because they're on death row doesn't mean that they did it. One. And two, is this something we should continue as a practice if that's a possibility that justice isn't technically served? If there's a possibility that someone's on death row who didn't commit the crime, which we know has been true historically, that's not made up, that there have been cases where that has been proven true. The Green Mile, horror/thriller written by Stephen King, also a book created into a film, explores this very premise in depth and in detail. This was a masterpiece film that was from 1999, but the premise of it really deeply explores this idea. And I think thrillers in general, anytime they get into sentencing and things like that, there's usually really good authors will explore this as well. And I definitely think Jeneva Rose does that here, where she gets you to start to question, well, he did do something. Does that mean he deserves to spend his life here? Is that what we're doing now? Like, because this is how Sarah justifies it, and she's okay with it, and she is an attorney. Like, this is her job. She's a defense attorney of all things. Right. But for her, it's like a mathematical equation to solve to try to get someone off. It's a kudos in her bag of, stats that she can get somebody off of, their sentencing or get it reduced. So it's just, I think she is having us as readers really try to think in depth about a conviction of someone and whether that's fact or just a bunch of evidence, using air quotes here, stacked against someone that creates enough to get rid of reasonable doubt. I definitely think that that's something that's here for sure.
Right. I would agree that it causes you to, or she causes you to really think about the justice system in terms of you're not guilty or innocent. It's framed as guilty or not guilty in terms of like your sentencing and how innocence is framed. There's a lot of things that are supposed to have to fall into place. And the fact that it could be just evidence that's viewed in a certain perspective based on the perspective of, or how many jurors that look at the evidence. So it's really tricky in terms of really having a clean conscience when it comes to sentencing someone. And as you can see through this book, he's not guilty of this. And, that like you said, it does happen. And even with life sentencing, and we've seen, if you look at any sort of history of law, people repeal their cases because, they're innocent, or evidence was looked at the wrong way, or, something happened with the juror that they were, biased. There's a lot of different nuances that can determine someone else's life. And honestly, I don't think I'd ever want to serve on a jury that has to sentence someone's life, because there's always the question, but what if they didn't do it? You have to come to that terms of you sentence someone to that. So, she is having us as readers think about it. I think it's an important topic for us to think about it, because oftentimes, especially if you're not like in the justice system, or if you're not around that sort of thing, you're like, oh, this is just something that happens. The law is made to be just, and really is it? And, I think good authors do have us not just question like the justice system, but have us question the world around us, because so often we just become so like jaded in what happens, and that's outside of our sphere. So, well, that wraps up our talk of The Perfect Marriage by Jeneva Rose.
Yes, and a good topic it was. We really started to explore some different things there. All right, well, let's do down the rabbit hole. Now we're on the subject of thrillers. Get your opinion on a thriller versus horror and the two genres, and kind of what your thoughts are on the differences between the two and what you would expect from a book versus film, etc., in terms of each genre. And I think for me, the very, very obvious difference between the two is that typically a thriller does not have any kind of mythical or paranormal, any of those type of elements to them. They typically don't. usually horror is going to have your ghosts. Horror is going to have your, any other kind of aesthetic that might not be real. It's usually going to play with a lot more real moments. Thrillers will touch on that, but you're never really going to see a ghost in a thriller that's going to explain something to you. You're not really going to have those types of elements. Whereas I feel like horror will definitely bring out either zombies or more blood and gore or those types of elements. That's just my personal opinion.
I actually agree with that. As soon as you said thriller versus horror, I'm like, okay, thriller, someone died. Thrillers are more on the solving of a problem, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. What I expect about horrors is to explore that unknown element that we tend to not have in our, at least I hope no one has in their everyday life. So they do explore, the paranormal, demons, mythological creatures that are terrifying, serial killers, and come face to face with that. There's not really a question on what the evil is. It's more of the impact the evil has, or the terrifying thing has. Whereas thrillers, it's like, this awful thing happens, now let's figure out how it happened and why.
And then I will also add that there can be dark romance thrillers, and the difference between a dark romance thriller and a thriller is the romance element has to happen. So you don't solve the crime without the romance happening. If the romance is removed, you have no story. So that's the difference. If you have a dark romance thriller where you find something out and your characters work through something and you solve something, the two characters or the main characters have to have some kind of romance element for it to drive the plot. And from a dark perspective, usually it can be gothic. It can be like a number of different ways. But I think it's important to note that if you're reading a dark romance, such as Leather and Lark, where you're trying to solve it, Leather and Lark is primarily about the romance and less about the fact that they're trying to solve who got to the bottom of what happened in that story.
Right.
But Leather and Lark, definitely, you're still solving a crime. However, the key to the story is the romance piece and how that's driving plot a lot more. Then obviously that still has to work through it, but the storyline is based in the romance piece. And without the romance piece being successful, you'll never find out the key source of the thriller.
I would agree. I actually thought from the beginning of this book, because it starts out like in a spicy scene, I was like, oh dang, are we going this route where it's going to be kind of more sexualized? It was quick. Now it's time for our mystery Q&A. These questions have not been shared with either of us prior to asking. So my question to you is, because we just kind of got exposed to a really toxic marriage and toxic relationship. And since we're both married, what or circumstance, or when did you know that your husband was like the one? This is the person for you.
That's a really great question. I would love to tell you that it was like this instantaneous moment and I was like, definitely, this is the person. But that's factually incorrect because I was coming out of a really long-term relationship at the time. And honestly, we were friends. So for me, that didn't happen right away. It was over some time. But I think what was the deal changer, like the deal breaker for me, is the level of attention that was given. So my husband, who is not a reader, read all the Harry Potter books because I asked him to.
Aww.
Okay. One of our second dates that we went on, he knew I had mentioned that I really liked classical music and that I had played the violin, and he took me to see a symphony orchestra as a date, as a surprise. So just like things like that, and honestly, he just made me feel very safe. So that was also like something that was important to me. Like I could be my nerdiest self and still feel really safe with him. And I think the other piece of it is he has never not encouraged me to do something or been in the way of me wanting to pursue a dream. Perfect example is that we're recording this show right now. You know, even with all the craziness of full-time job, being a mom, being a spouse, doing all the things, he trusted me enough and believed in me enough to encourage that dream. And I already knew that he was that type of person. We're going to be married 10 years this year. So, you know, you've been with him for a bit now. You know, so I think I would love to tell you that there was this, like, I absolutely knew in this specific moment, but that's really just, it's not true. It was consistent. It was consistency, being there, showing up, really listening. All of those reasons, I think, were why. What about you?
Mm-hmm. So when I got with my husband, I was also kind of coming off a relationship. We were in our last year of college, and we both worked at the same pizza place. And so he was new because he transferred into this pizza place. And I made a joke to him about his last name. And he totally brushed me off and ignored me and just like gave me this like really flat answer after I asked him again. If it was then, I'm like, we're gonna be friends. We're like, I'm not. So
You're determined.
I don't want to say, yeah, I was very determined because I don't know about you. In my like personal life, in my work life, especially when I was in college and, you know, working like food service, my personality was a little bit different. I was a lot more outgoing. And I was like, you're not going to ignore me in my own job. Like, that's not going to happen. And then we ultimately, after our shifts ended up aligning a lot, and then we worked a lot together, and work turned into flirtatious banter. And then one day we were just spending a lot of time together, and I like literally never left his apartment that year in college. And I remember reflecting back, it wasn't even like short after it happened. He's like, yeah, you just never left. I'm like, well, you didn't ask me to leave, so how am I going to think you want me to leave if you don't tell me to leave? You know, you should be pretty clear about that. And then, yeah. So it was more, we didn't have as much of a build up. It was definitely more of an instant type thing. And then like our first date, he bought me like universal passes, like annual passes on his credit card.
Gift.
So I'm like, yeah, exactly. Because he was like, let's go to Universal. I have these annual passes. I'm like, I don't have an annual pass. He's like, I got you. I'm like, okay, so you're clearly seeing this long term. And it ended up, you know, working out. So it was more of a, and the reason why is very, and you've of course met my husband multiple times and interacted with him multiple times. He's unfazed by like anything. He is very much a calm person, and with someone with like high anxiety, like I need that. Sometimes it's frustrating because I'm like, why aren't you worried about this? He's just like, it's fine. So that's one of the things, especially since one of our first dates actually going to Universal, my car got towed, and he was just like, it's fine, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, what do you mean? My car's towed. Like, you know, so seeing how he handles high stress situations was like a huge thing for me, which, you know, because there's a lot of high stress situations. So he's just so calm with everything. And the fact that he's goofy, and he brings out like the goofiness in me, really just having that ability. And, you know, just knowing
love a guy that can make you laugh.
Exactly. And that just his ability to be really understanding and like, you know, talking about things, you know, past trauma, things that are just going on, and being able to like switch from like serious conversations to really silly conversations. The tone's going to be the same, and knew that he was going to be a supportive person, especially since that was the fall semester of our senior year. And the next semester I went to DC for like 16 weeks. And he was like, okay, that's fine. This is fine. Like we'd just been dating for like a month. He's like, you're going to leave? Okay. This will still be a thing. So knowing that even with distance, like, it was still, because the relationship it was more than just, you know, physical. There was something more there. So, yeah.
My question for you is this. You can pick one luxury brand item to buy, or like one thing that you love that's a luxury item. What are you buying and why?
It's hard because I'm very much not a luxury person. I am an Amazon.
Why I asked it.
I am an Amazon dupe person. And my term of luxury, I don't even think is technically luxury. Like, the one thing I really splurge on is Lululemon leggings. That is like, I
don't know if that's luxury, but we're gonna go with it. Sure.
But that's my one big splurge. I mean, okay, so I will say,
no, like, you can buy anything. Like, there's no budget for this. Buy whatever you want. A luxury item.
I guess it would be a car. Like, if I had like no budget, I'd get a luxury car.
What car are you getting?
I would anything that's big. See, I'm not a car person, but if I had to like buy a luxury item, it has to be a 3-row, because now we're at the point where I'm like, we have 2 large ass dogs. We have 2 children. There's too much.
Yeah. No, in this equation, it's just like a bonus vehicle. You can get whatever you want. You can get whatever you want in this.
The fact that you're saying like you can have whatever you want, my brain is like, what do you mean I can get whatever you want? I want, because I don't buy things for me. I don't know. If I had a luxury item,
well, I can answer it for myself if you want.
Okay.
And then you can go.
Okay. You go first.
So mine would be like a no budget vacation. If I could like legit get anything, I would want a no budget vacation, meaning all my clothes, everything. No budget. Where we're going. I would love to stay at like a really high end place just to do it one time. I don't need to do it like a bunch of times. The one time is good. But I would love to experience that, like very high end travel experience, like the bouginess of it, the whole deal, where you can bring my whole family and do the very high end. Like that would be like a luxury item package deal that I would want to do like one time.
Well, now I want to do that.
Well, you can do that. You can take mine.
Yeah. If it was like, I thought you meant like an item. Like I had to have like, my phone.
You could. Or, you could pick an item.
Okay. Well, that's what I thought.
I feel like a trip would be like better.
Yeah. I would rather go on a trip. I would rather have experiences. Me and my husband said like after this Christmas, which we say after every Christmas, we're like, fuck these toys. There's too many goddamn toys. And the kids don't even give a shit anyways. Like, they don't even remember what toy did I buy?
Yeah.
What Barbie did I get? We're not doing that anymore. We want to do experiences.
Yeah, we're taking them. We're going somewhere. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we could go together.
Do experience.
What if we did that?
Can. Yeah.
And we do like the ultimate spa day one of the days. And it's like the most peak spa day you can imagine.
Have everything cleansed.
They lather us with 24 karat gold or something. I don't know.
Always whatever they do. One of those scalp treatments that I see. And then, we can plan a whole thing. We'll plan our luxury days.
Yeah. Any luxury vacation specialists who happen to be listening to this, we're your girls. We're ready to go. Send us. We'll report back. We'll tell you about our experience with it. Okay, then. That's a good mystery Q&A.
There we go. Before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next on Book Club After Dark.
So next week, I'm really excited. We're diving into our next deep dive series. Yeah. This is going to be... You're going to be following us into the Eating Woods, which is the name of the series, The Eating Woods. And it's going to be a trilogy. Right now, Anathema and the second book, Eldritch, are both released. Third book is releasing later this year, but we're going to start with Anathema by Carrie Lake next week. So excited to get going with that.
Very excited, also very nervous, lots of spiders. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on The Perfect Marriage or suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message us on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
Yep. And you can also visit our website, bookclubafterdark.co, to stay up to date on our cozy content and check out our merch.
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.